All right, we are recording. We have sound. Everyone, welcome. This is no longer Aluminum Tarot. They have said goodbye to Aluminum Tarot. We are now creating Crucible Tarot, so that way we can talk a little bit about themes that matter to the channel and what it is that I'm trying to accomplish with it. So I'll give an explainer about that in the days to come. But I just wanted to kind of use this, chance to try to get regrounded and centered upon the central theme of this, which is transmutation and overcoming difficulties and challenges within life. This is not an airy-fairy channel. I don't want to be all love and light and rainbows and kisses and shit like that. So for me, it's going to be important for me to focus on what matters, which is the transmutation of negative energy into positive, transferring lead into gold, which is an essential core component of the messages that I want to speak about. So that said, we'll be doing that. And again, I'll give that explainer as soon as I can. For the meantime, if you like what you see on this channel, please be sure to give a like, share, subscribe, ding the notification bell so that you don't miss any updates from future postings. And furthermore, just support the channel in whichever way you choose to see fit. We'll be reading for the sign of Scorpio now, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. This will be for the month of June 2026. It is not going to be for the full month, but it is a message that resonates with you at this specific time the way it needs to. And that said, we'll go straight into it. Yeah, let's go ahead. I am reading from several different decks, and I'm going to just share some of those with you. The first one is the Oracle of Emanations Angel I Am deck, which is one of my favorites. It's absolutely stunning material in this, and there's a lot of focus on the archangels and additionally some of the concepts behind the Tree of Life in the Kabbalah, and a lot of the theories and the kind of metaphysics behind it. So then after that, we've got the Moonology Oracle decks, which is by Yasmin Bolland. The Angel I Am is from Peter Moorbacher, which is an incredible illustrator. And furthermore, we have another deck here, which is from the Warrior of Love Tarot. This is from a woman known as Luna Marie, and she is, I believe she's based in Bath, but she has created this deck, and I find it to be quite a beautiful deck to work with. It's a lot of colors, a lot of pastels to it, and additionally, it does show some of the information related to the modalities of each different card. So, if a card is Mercury and such, Mercury and Gemini, Mercury and Cancer, Mars and Mars and Leo, things of that nature. And it's a good way to kind of learn those modalities, to understand how they interact with the individual and their path. And we can learn quite a bit from these different decks. I love decks that actually teach as much as they are entertaining and visually appealing. So that said, as I've said before, we're going to go into the first card for you. The first card is Dat. Dat deals with the concept of being fully empty and being in a state where there's non-being. So you have some interesting cards that are coming up here. You have Dat, which is null and void and empty. But then you have, as your Moonology Oracle card, you have the full moon, which is surrender to the divine. And there is a very strong correspondence between the two of these. When you surrender to the divine, you give up everything and allow for the divine to fill you. So in order for you to surrender to the divine, you have to be at a state where you are empty, like a vessel that can then take in the light of the divine or the waters of spirit. And then it will conform to your life and help you to, take in that sustenance and to be able to overcome the difficulties of any challenges that you're faced with that As you can see with the dot, it's full of holes. It's basically, it's also got this pyramid here at the top. And that pyramid, since it is facing down, it is representative of the sign of water, or the element of water. Water is the pyramid facing down, or the triangle facing down. Fire is facing upwards, representing male and female energies. And this is a great way to kind of look at this tarot deck, or this oracle deck, to see the synchronicity between two completely separate tarot decks. Or why do I keep saying that? Oracle decks. They're operating at their own frequency, their own energies, but they seamlessly deliver a message in this particular reading for you, Scorpio. So when we have the full moon, it is a culmination of events and circumstances that have led you to a specific point in your month-long cycle. And with the full moon, we typically talk about things that have been recycled, going from a period of about 28 days. This also deals with the cycle of menstruation, things of that nature for women, and for bringing things into fruition, because the Moonology deck tends to teach us about the different phases of the moon, which earmark specific events that are taking place in your life that allow for you to understand the progress, the fluid movement of the universe as it embarks on a specific cause, or brings something to light, or gives its own revelation. So one of the things I wanted to mention, I did look up the correspondence with the moon in the pantheon of archangels, and it is actually Gabriel, which came out for the sign of Libra. And Libra had a lunar message along with Gabriel. Gabriel is ruled by the moon, not Sagittarius, not Jupiter. So anyone born on a Monday, I was actually born on a Monday, so Gabriel would be my day correspondent, my day energy correspondent. Tuesday would be Samael, which deals with Mars, Martian energy. There's a lot we could talk about with that, but I'll leave it for another time. So what you're doing, you're clearing the space to surrender to the divine. You're allowing for life to take course the way it needs to. And by doing this, you can go with the flow of the universe and give yourself the opportunity to bring things into fruition by releasing control and letting go so that they can take place. We look at the first set of cards that are coming out for you, and you have the Page of Swords in the reverse, and then additionally you have the Seven of Wands, I believe, also in the reverse. So with these two, it's almost like you have taken a step back from something that has been taking shape. And you may have taken a step back because what you're trying to do is to study it and to vicariously understand it, so that way you know the next action to take. In this particular case, though, it almost seems like there's been a bit of resignation to the entire situation, with Seven of Wands in the reverse, and then also the Page of Swords in the reverse. It's telling us of a person who is no longer connecting to something that used to hold a specific amount of value. And then additionally, you have, why is this taking place? Okay, so guys want to pop up. So you have the Five of Pentacles. The reason why all of this is taking place is because of the Five of Pentacles, and additionally the King of Swords in the reverse. So if you've been dealing with someone who is a King of Swords in the reverse, a very negative, game playing, kind of emotional, mentally manipulative or difficult person to deal with, they have put you out in the cold, or they have potentially put you in a financial bind, that has been the result of a separation in a relationship. That could be one way that this manifests. In another way that this can manifest is you're kind of taking a step back and resigning to this situation because you were dealing with financial difficulties and you're not really sure how you see a clear way forward out of this situation. So the King of Swords in the reverse tends to be a person who's not quite focused or masterful of their circumstance and cannot find a strategy or a way out of a difficult situation. So that said, we move furthermore into the second set. Now, this is what I've got for this. We have the Ten of Cups here, which seems like it's a pretty positive card set. But then we have the Three of Cups in the reverse. So I want to draw another card just to kind of see exactly why this is taking shape, because these are very contradictory energies. Why is that taking shape? Wow, okay. So you have the Ten of Pentacles in the reverse. You have the Ten of Cups in the upright, Ten of Pentacles in the reverse. It's almost giving me the understanding of whether or not you actually feel happy in a relationship, but do not have the foundation for the relationship itself. So, for example, a person can be madly in love with someone, but they're unable to form that solid Ten of Pentacles, which is a life legacy, something that is rooted in reality, in the physical, the terra firma of this world, which gives it a sense of a foundation that is essential to perpetuating the relationship or the job or wherever this applies to. Again, these are algorithms. They apply to your life experience, and they need to apply the energies as such. So one person's story may be about a job, another's may be about moving to a new location, another may be about a relationship. You would need to see how that operates in your life and as it sees fit. So with the Ten of Cups in the upright, but the Three of Cups in the reverse, I get the energy that a person is blind to their ability to form healthy relationships to people around them. They may see things as very optimistic and positive, but with the Three of Cups in the reverse, it could be one of two things. Either A, they're dealing with people who work behind their back in an unscrupulous manner, whether that is through infidelity, or that is through gossiping and backbiting, or you yourself could be, creating this kind of energy for the relationship as well. You may be the cheater. You may be the one who is causing the gossip and the behind the back kind of actions. So use that at your own discretion. Try to understand this in a more objective sense as to how it would apply to your story. In doing that, that has, with the Ten of Pentacles in the reverse, that has created that fall from grace. And in doing so, this has prevented you from having that solid foundation that will lead to your happiness. It is important for many people who get into relationships to understand there's an old saying, and I grew up in the, I'm a millennial pretty much, but I grew up with this one saying, it's like, there's no romance without finance. So that could be one way it manifests, where a person is just kind of like not financially stable enough to have that Ten of Cups in the upright. Or it's like you can be madly in love with someone, but have no sense of purpose with that individual. And this typically happens because what happens is people will continue with the relationship only to find out that they grow apart because there's nothing anchoring them together. There's no desire for a common project. There's no desire to build a life together, to get a house, to accumulate resources, and to have a solid foundation for dealing with one another It could just end up in kind of like this messy, toxic, selfish dollop of emotion where people lose sense of themselves and lose sight of what they were, falling in love with in the first place. So I get rose-tinted glasses with all of this quite heavily. Furthermore, you get into the last set of cards, which is the Emperor in the reverse. You have the Emperor in the reverse and the Seven of Swords. There's more deception here with the Three of Cups in the reverse and then the Seven of Swords in the upright. You get a person who is experiencing a loss of control. Oftentimes with this Emperor energy in the reverse, it talks about a person whose world is kind of falling apart or is losing control of the situation because they don't have a grip on their senses or on this subject of the matter. And so what that's in turn doing, it's causing a bit of sabotage. And with Seven of Swords, that can be an issue of self-sabotage. Because this is your reading and this is the way it's showing up, you need to determine whether you want to in the comments or not, whether or not this is someone doing this to you or you have done this and now you're sowing the course of your actions. But either way, that is the way the energy is materializing in all of this. The Emperor is Aries. Aries in the reverse, in its negative sense in this reading, is about being a control freak, not knowing which direction to go, having poor leadership with your life, not being able to command a situation when it needs to take place. So the Emperor in the reverse leads to a sense of instability with that number 4. Because it is the 4th card of the Major Arcana, it tells us about things beginning to fall apart because there's no stability. And you could say this is kind of like the Major Arcana version of the 4 of Wands, where you were celebrating a milestone and you're able to earmark something in your life that you've actually made it to. So that way you can actually continue carrying on the fight. And with the Emperor in the reverse, that stability is quite lost in a sense. Finally, we can go to the last set of cards here. We have the 5 of Wands, which is your outcome. This is also clarified by the 10 of Wands. So I was speaking with Libra about, when energies double, or like when they square, or if they cube, or if they double or triple, we have a strong materialization of that energy. So for example, I think in Libra's reading, they had the 3 of Swords, and then it became the 9 of Swords. So that's a cubic representation of that number and the intensity therein. So it becomes like a prison almost when you have this cube. In this case, what I see is a doubling of sword energy. When you have the 5 of wand energy. When you have the 5 of Wands, this leads to conflict, difficulty getting along with each other, being at loggerheads with one another. And then that in turn doubles because both of you are bringing a 5 of Wands energy to the relationship. It then creates this culmination of heavy, difficult energy that is hard to continue on with. So if in order for you to be empty and surrender to the divine, you have to let go of the ego, which is carrying this into a very difficult uphill battle, which you even see here. It's this massive mountain that you have to carry those sticks and rods up. That's not an easy feat, especially when you want to lay down the burden. So what I'm looking at here is a person despite being mistreated in the past, you're desperately trying to bring things back to an era or a period that you can feel happy about. But what in turn happens is that everything falls apart once again, and you feel like a strong sense of self-sabotage. So it's like when someone tries to navigate a storm, and at first they understand what they're going up against and the risks that they have and the potential for things to go south really fucking quickly when things like this begin to fall apart. And as I always show people, I wear this Vegvisa sigil right here as a kind of reminder of what I had to go through in Iceland when I was chasing the Northern Lights. And when I finally tried to chase it by going as far out as I could towards like the cliffs of some of the areas, I got engulfed in this really disgusting ice storm, which threw hail at me the size of BBs, like, little airsoft guns. Imagine the skies just showering you with freezing BB gun, pellets, just tapping you in the face, trying to poke your eye out and all that. I was like, I have to get the absolute fuck out of here before something bad happens. And so, I thought that I could bear that storm, but it eventually showed me that you have to be respectful of the changes that are taking shape around you, the storms and the difficulties that you have to bear, and additionally, the power and the might of the elements. When our ego gets involved in certain things, that is what oftentimes creates the burden in which we are trapped in a very difficult situation. So the way I was able to escape that one is I finally, fled. I had to leave. But I was rewarded with a glimpse of the Northern Lights at the very, very final 11th hour, literally the 11th hour of getting back to the hostel and seeing the Northern Lights in the sky. So it is when we surrender to the divine, when I finally said, okay, thank you, divine, for this beautiful trip. And even though I was chasing in the Northern Lights, I'll never forget the adventure that I had going in, Reykjavik to try to see a glimpse of something I've always wanted to see. And that is when the universe finally rewarded me with a glimpse of those green Northern Lights. And it was when I listened to my intuition and I became empty. That's when I became full of joy, when I was able to see them. In your specific case, in order for you to overcome this storm, you will have to go back to a time in which you were completely emptied of any ego, wrongdoing, emotional turmoil. Clear out all of the misconceptions, the difficulties that you've encountered, the rose-tinted glasses. Strip yourself naked and vulnerable to the cosmos. And I think that is when you're going to finally see a strategy and a way out of this. Rather than sabotaging yourself, it's going to be important for you to empty yourself of all preconceived notions, and then that will allow you to receive the divine's messages and broadcasts to you, so that way you can approach this difficult scenario with a very clear head. So, that said, we're at 25 minutes nearly, so I'm going to leave it at that. With this channel, I appreciate everyone's love and support. We've already crossed the 300 subscriber mark. I want to just keep going, try to get as many people to subscribe, to spread the message, boost the algorithms and things of that nature. So all of your help and support for that has been quite instrumental, and I thank you for that. If you'd like, again, what you see here, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, ding the notification bell, and instead of leaving you with a love and light, I'm going to leave you with something that resonates even more with me. It is the Latin phrase, viam gevora ambula, that I've created, which means I walk the path of severity, courage, and bravery. That is the path that I want people to walk when they hear these messages, even if they don't seem like, X is coming back and you're going to get a big bag of money that's going to drop off at your doorstep, or you're going to win the lottery and stuff. We need to go into these spiritual concepts that are going to allow us to grow as a spiritual being having a human experience. That is what this is all about. So thank you so much. And until next time, bye now.